stillwater fly fishing in the winter when everything's iced over. That sounds crazy. And it is, but I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and let me tell you about how I actually do that. I'm a member of a private club. It's not as country club expensive as it sounds, but we have a 3-acre lake, and we stock it in the fall and in the spring with trout of a fairly large size, right? So some of them get up into the lower 20 inches, nice fish. But in the winter, we actually keep some aerators going, and that keeps open water, and you can fish it. It's not as exciting as in the spring when you're catching, multiple fish every day. You might fish for a couple of hours right in the middle of the day, right from that 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. or 1400, and then kind of the day's over. So it's a really relaxed pace. But I'm going to tell you how we do it and how that actually works. I do have to start with a joke, though, one that I've been telling for a long time, which is that the hardest part about fishing in still waters or fly fishing in still waters through the ice is having to make a cast to that little hole from 50 feet back. Let's start by taking a look at the pond and the aerators specifically that we have, and what do we get out of those aerators? Here at the club, we keep an aerator going. We actually have a couple of them. We've got one over there, and we've got one over there. And what that does is it does 3 things for us. The first thing is that it keeps open water so that we can fish, which is good. But mostly what it does is it introduces oxygen into the water because the pond is relatively shallow. That way we don't get a winter kill. And it also keeps open water so that if any toxic gases get trapped underneath the ice, it will actually off gases. So it'll keep us from having a different kind of fish kill. But here, one thing that's interesting about ponds is that all of the land around a pond slopes down into the pond. And here we had rain overnight. And what happened is all of our snow, and you can see some of it there around the edges, all of our snow got rained on, and we had this very nice fluffy snow. It rained on top of it, and it all turned into ice. And not only that, but it's wet ice, which is some of the most dangerous stuff on the planet to walk on, added to the fact that all of the slopes push you down into the pond. So it's a little bit treacherous walking here. So I have added my trusty YakTracks. See them on there. I've got chains on my feet, and that helps me to actually get out and fish today. So one of the important things that I take is these. These are actually made by YakTrack. They make a couple of them. Some just have regular chains here across the foot. These are actually basically tire chains for your feet. They work incredibly well. I use them for hiking in the mountains in the winter. We went to Flume Gorge in New Hampshire and hiked on the ice. My wife thought it was crazy because she's from the tropics. Blew her mind. Awesome stuff. But these help incredibly well. These versions are the diamond bit. So you'll see they have these crazy beads that have spikes all over them. And these spikes help you to bite into that ice, especially when it's wet ice, and give you traction. Now, in order to use these, you take your hiking boot, you take the one end that's the front end, the back end has a little loop here. You just put it over your boots and then just pull them down, boop, and flip them over the heel, and then make sure that all these little rivets here are down and around the upper of your boot, and it gives you this nice traction surface on the bottom of your boot where that round ring, both here in the forefoot and the heel, turn into a ring of spikes that gives you instant traction. And so that's one of the things, even when the ground around the pond looks safe, sometimes because you have open grass, sometimes in between the open grass, there are little patches of ice, and if you're not expecting them to be there, it becomes incredibly dangerous because you just step there and you instantly start sliding down towards the pond. Another safety feature that I take is right here on my net. So I have a fish pond net. It's just about the same size as a walking net. I think it's a Nomad mid-length, which works great. I take it all the time when I go fish on the pond. But one of the things that they sell is this little rubber adapter, and you just slide it on the end of the net. You have to do something to keep it in there. So either glue it or do what I did, which is I drilled a hole through it, and then I added an elastic lanyard string through it. And then, of course, I have my catch and release that's here. I'll talk about that later. But this actually has nubs on it. And in a pinch, if you find yourself suddenly on really, really icy terrain or on one of the docks, you can take your net, flip it around, grab it by the top, and use this as a third leg or a cane or a walking aid in order to get you across that icy spot. Now, if you have to do it for too long, you need to reconsider your life choices and maybe fish someplace that's a little bit safer. When I first started fishing on the lake in the winter, I realized that I needed a better jacket because all that I had for winter was ski jackets and they were incredibly bright. So fluorescent orange, bright red, even this sort of mustard color, but they were all bright and they stood out against the snow and against the trees. So I started looking for jackets that would help keep me warm and help keep me waterproof. And what I eventually settled on, and I'm incredibly happy with it, is this thing right here. It's a hunting jacket from Hot Shot. They're a company that they make jackets for hunting. My reasoning behind it is that they are made for people who sit around in a deer blind or in a tree stand. You're not moving. The weather during hunting season is sort of this wintry mix. It might snow, it might rain, it might kind of be in between those two, so it does both. The wind sort of blows in, but they're made for just sitting there, not being active. And so in order to make that happen, they've got a removable liner in here. It's got synthetic filling, and you can take this and unzip the liner. You can wear this as a jacket. You can just wear the overshell. It has a hood with a little bit of a quilted liner in it that helps keep you warm. This thing is phenomenally warm when you're just standing there next to the hole in the ice fishing. The other part is that it's camouflaged. And funny enough, this is Vail. The company that made the camouflage is Vail, and they call this camouflage the Corvidae, which is named after the deer. And the whole idea behind this camouflage is that it's scientifically tested so that deer can see it the less. So I thought about it and I said, okay, well, trout are basically the deer of the lake. So if the deer can't see me, then probably the fish can't see me. Made some kind of sense. At least I had some rationale behind it. Probably doesn't work that way, but that's okay. But this is my jacket. Now, inside of each of the side pockets of the jacket, I keep my fishing gloves. So these ones are from Simms. They're very thin neoprene in most places, a little bit of fleece here, but they're good. They're fingerless, so you can fish. But they also have flip outs. So you have a flip out little thumb sleeve that comes out, and you have sort of this thing on the backhand side, comes out, flips over, and it gives you sort of that mitten look going on. Most of the time when I'm fishing, unless I'm just standing there watching an indicator, I will actually take this part, and it's not very elegant to do on camera, but you just tuck it here in the back of the hand, and now it's stuffed away. Most of the time when I'm fishing, though, I'm fishing with my fingers out. Keeps my hand warm enough. Most of the time, unless it's really, really cold, I don't even need gloves. I also realize that I'm a freak of nature, and I grew up steelhead fishing and skiing in the Northern Rockies. So there's a certain part of you're feeling uncomfortable that my brain just doesn't register. So a lot of times I'm not doing gloves. When my hands get to the point where they're not working right, then I put on gloves and have a nice day. Another piece of safety equipment that I carry that you might not even think of as safety equipment is just a towel. Now, this one I got at a hockey game. I showed this one before. It's a Fear the Bear, Boston Bruins towel, but it's just the right size to be a hand towel, right? You could use a regular hand towel out of your bathroom. You could use a kitchen towel. The whole idea is that when you handle a fish or you handle anything that's wet, if there's wind chill, it will immediately get cold after you pick your hand up out of the water. So it is incredibly advantageous to carry a towel of some kind. You can dry off your hand, put the towel back in your bag, and then continue fishing. And because your hands are dry, they won't get as cold as fast. And the last piece of safety gear that I want to go over is a hat. Normally, when I'm out fishing, I'm wearing my trusty Project Healing Waters baseball cap, dark brim, helps you to see fish, works great. I actually just put my hood of my jacket up over the top, but I do carry a fishing hat. I got this for Christmas. I got this for Christmas from one of the Project Healing Waters guys that I helped out a lot. So he gave me this as a thank you gift. So it's got my name on it. So in case I forget, I can remember who I am. But it's just a knit cap. Carry it in your bag, carry it in your jacket so that if you get stuck someplace and you're cold and you need 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get yourself back to civilization, you can put on that knit cap and it'll actually warm up your body considerably and help you from getting hypothermia, which is a bad thing. So that begs the question, how do you actually go out and catch fish? So the biggest thing is that you need open water. Okay? And one of the things that we do at the clubhouse is we keep the aerator close to the clubhouse so that way you have a chunk of open water immediately adjacent to the shore. And you saw that in the video. We also have some aerators that are out in the lake. And I went through a thing this fall where I moved it over closer to the docks. So we have fishing docks. I moved the aerator over closer to the fishing dock so that the wakes from the aerator or the bubbles created an open spot, and that open spot extended out over to the dock so that you could actually cast into it very easily. Fishing and the actual mechanisms of fishing are pretty easy. There are two techniques that people use. One is you use an indicator rig and set your depth. Like usually I'm setting it between 5 feet and 7 feet because that's how deep the bottom is when you're from shore or from a dock. And I'll use a handful of flies. Literally, it comes down to 3 or 4 basic patterns. The first one is really easy. It's just a blob in a bright color that gets that strike instinct from the fish. Works sometimes really great, other times doesn't work at all. Give it a try. Number 2 is a leech of some kind, either a balanced leech or a mini jig leech. I tied some. I'll give you the pattern right here. I will do a soft hackle or a partridge hackle or a partridge soft hackle, pheasant tail or hare's ear. So something that can sit underneath of an indicator, and that soft hackle will actually pulse with the current or the waves that are hitting that indicator. And then the last thing that I'll use is Rainbow Warrior or something that's small and bright and highly reflective. Gets their interest, but then it also looks kind of buggy. The second technique that people do is just what we would call naked nymphing. And they're using a longer leader, so a 10-foot leader, 12-foot leader, going down to, say, 5X tippet, and they'll throw something like a balanced leech, right? So a leech or a squirmy wormy or a blob or a nymph of some kind. And then the people will do a simple hand twist retrieve or simple twitch, twitch, twitch retrieve in order to work that through the water sometimes that has advantages over indicator fishing, especially when the fish are really, they're just striking really lightly, and it might not make the indicator move, or it might not signal anything on the indicator. So if you do naked nymphing, you have a straight line down to that fly, and you can feel subtle takes a lot more. So it makes sense to do naked nymphing or a naked line a lot more than it does to use an indicator. And that's about it on Stillwater fishing in the winter through the ice. As always, if you have questions, comments, war stories, concerns, want to know more about this, send me a message, give me a comment. Otherwise, I've been Mike. This is Nymphs, Knots, and Nonsense, and I will see you in the next video.